Hey guys, it's been a couple weeks and I know I say this a lot, but I did actually film 2 other videos between the one that I last posted and the one that I'm filming right now. And I don't know if I'm probably not gonna upload them, just because they were kind of rambly, and I know that's like all of my videos. But yeah, they just, and too, they felt kind of personal, which again is kind of like all the vlogs. But yeah, so I'm gonna try and touch on what I talked about, the important things that I talked about in those today. But if there's any overlap, and on the flip side, if there's some gaps, sorry, because I just can't remember. But yeah, I just want to give a little bit of an update on like where I've been with Emdr, because that has been, it's kind of like the main focus of my life right now, which kind of, I guess it's a good thing, but also it kind of sucks because just like I feel guilty about having like I graduated and I started my job, which I actually started before graduation, but like you get the idea. And just kind of, I started off really strong, but then when I got farther into EMDR, especially like July is when things like and just feeling like I can't give 100% to my career right now. And yeah, I just feel kind of guilty about that, because I know that like being able to get a job like in the field in the first place is like a big privilege, and I don't know, I don't want to take advantage of that, but it's been like hard to focus a little bit. But yeah, I don't know why I led with that. But so I know I feel kind of like, I know I seem kind of somber, but I've actually been pretty good the past couple of days. The last EMDR session I had was actually 2 weeks ago, because my therapist went, or I don't know, I'm assuming she went on vacation, I'm not sure. But I actually see her tomorrow, and I did take a little bit of like a break in terms of like diving into myself and doing my own work, because I think I mentioned in my last video that I'd been doing that, and it was just a lot, and it was bringing like a lot of things to the forefront, to the point that I really couldn't handle it. And I think there's a word for that, and I think it's called flooding. So yeah, that was just not helpful, because if you're moving it kind of like running, like if you're moving at too quick of a pace, you're just gonna get tired and you're not gonna be able to finish. So it's good to pace yourself with stuff like this. But that being said, I have discovered a lot of like important things in the past couple weeks, and one of the biggest things, and I think I talked about this in the last video, is like parts. We've been doing parts work because I'm not like stable enough to do EMDR yet. Yeah, it feels great. No, but I'm actually really glad that like my therapist has taken the time with me, because yeah, to just, like I said, rushing into things, it's just gonna make things worse. So you really need like a stable foundation. And also, excuse me, I feel really nauseous because little side note, I just started a new medication, and I'm in the process of coming off of Prozac, because for whatever reason, like traditional like SSRIs apparently don't really work super well with me. Worked really well at first. I remember when I first started Prozac, it really like pulled me out of the funk that I was in. But like when they stopped working, like ever since then, they've never really had the same effect. And then I tried Cymbalta, and that was bad, and I talked about that before. And then I tried Zoloft, and that didn't do anything. And so I just went back on Prozac because I was comfortable with that. And then my psychiatrist prescribed me Trinitellix, because that is like an atypical antidepressant. And it's funny because I did feel like nauseous the first time I took it, and then the last couple of days I was fine, and I was like, wow, this is great. And then I took it today, and literally within like 30 minutes I was like, whoa, this is gross. So yeah, I got in bed at like like 8:45, and then I couldn't sleep, so I got up and I decided to film a vlog, which is actually good because then I went down and I got my folder because I was going to talk about my drawings, so no jump scare. And I would have forgotten to bring that tomorrow to my appointment, which I did last time, so actually good that I got up and filmed this. But wow, I feel really dizzy. Shit. What was I saying? Parts work. So yeah, we've been doing parts work, and I'm gonna put like a link in the description that talks about that. More specifically IFS, which stands for Internal Family Systems, and that is a type of therapy model that believes that the brain is like inherently broken up into parts. And it's kind of confusing to me still because I don't know how much overlap there is with dissociation, or if like IFS, yeah, is a way of dealing with dissociation, like treating it, because yeah, I have dealt with that. But yeah, I've gotten to like know my parts better, and realistically I know that like I'm all one person, but I think with my brain, and a lot of other people can probably relate to this, I think I tend to compartmentalize things even subconsciously, and so it can kind of feel like there's multiple people, not in the sense that they like have their whole like full-fledged identities, but just in the sense that like they carry a different energy and like a perspective. Because I've talked about this before, I can go to like 0 to 100 really quickly, and not in the sense that people would generally think. I don't like swing from being really happy with someone and then like very upset. Like I don't do that kind of switch. It's very internal. Like I've gotten better at it, but it's like I have a hard time maintaining like an emotional homeostasis, and I can go from looking at life one way to doing like a complete 180. Actually and I think I mentioned this in the last video too, I've been writing my therapist notes in between sessions, just kind of like jotting down whatever's going on in my head. And one thing I do know I mentioned this week was it this week? Might have been last week, doesn't matter. But I said that I can go like really quickly from believing life is beautiful and I feel like I'm never gonna have enough time to experience everything that I want to experience, to dreading the fact that I still have like my whole life ahead of me. And so that's kind of an example of like the switch that I can do, and I still don't know why that is. I know that like emotional regulation is a part of it, but I think also maybe it could be related to just like feeling fragmented, and like maybe those like different parts being triggered or activated can kind of like take over and cause that switch. But yeah, so anyways, that has been helpful in just like being able to deal with that, and not only that but like other stuff too, because, and I showed this last time, let me get my drawing out, of like what I felt like my different parts were in my head. Actually I may not have it, it doesn't look like I don't think I have it here, it's somewhere. But yeah, I'd shown this drawing and it had like 4 people on it. This is kind of similar to that because I kind of feel like I have myself, which is the center. Like I'm always there, like there's always like the main, it's like a tree and I'm like the stump, but then sometimes like different parts will kind of like take over and cloud my vision. Like I go from being in the driver's seat to the passenger seat, if that makes sense. And 2 parts that I really deal with is like this very angry, rage filled part, which is like the angry teenager in my last drawing, and then I have like this like straight up suicidal part, which I also drew in a different picture that is somewhere. And it's not like an evil part, because if I talked about this stuff with like my mom, she'd be like, it's a demon and that's why you're dealing with that. And that way of thinking can be like really harmful and alienating, because it makes you blame yourself, I think, and feel bad about something that you shouldn't feel bad about. And that's something that I experienced a lot when I was like dealing with everything in 2020, in the fall of 2020, because back then I didn't know like what recovered or body memories were, and I literally just straight up didn't know what I was dealing with because I had never heard of that before. And my mom was like, I think it's a demon. And then I felt bad about myself because I was like, well shit, like what did I, if, not that I ever thought it was a demon, but like I was just like, damn, that's like, what does that say about me? And also it's scary to have someone tell you that they think a demon is like haunting you. So yeah, it's not a demon. It's not like a bad, the suicidal part is not a bad figure. It's just like a figure that holds a lot of pain. And there was one day, this was like actually 2 weeks ago, and I talked about this in one of the videos that I filmed but then didn't post because it felt very intimate, but I guess I'm gonna talk about it anyways. I drew this picture because one day when I was at my desk, I felt like I could just like see them in my head, and it was like they were peeking behind a wall. And I wrote, you know what, I'm just gonna read it. And again, it's kind of like TMI, but I don't know, this is what was going on in my head, and this is what I felt like it was like speaking to me. And I said, they live in the back of my chest and they want me to kill myself. They're very timid and shy, and they are not evil. They're in a lot of pain. They feel like a black hole. They are just looking for the quickest, most surefire way of relief. They feel guilty, isolated, and broken. They're not bad. They want to get better but feel like they don't deserve it. Yeah, so that's what I wrote that in July 26th. And I do know during that week I was dealing a lot with suicidal ideation, which I didn't realize was common with, well, I didn't realize it was common at all, because I think it's something that people don't tend to talk about because they're scared of being like involuntarily hospitalized. And it's funny because it was something that I didn't really ever bring up in therapy until this time around. And it's funny because my therapist was like, I think because I like mentioned it, and this was like maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I don't know. And she was like, you know, if you're having those thoughts, like you can tell me. And I was like, no, it's fine. And then like by the next section, I was like really diving into it. And that kind of just goes to show you how important like having those strong therapist-client relationships can be. That was weird. My screen just got like much brighter. I don't know what that was. I'll have to play that back. I thought it stopped recording, but it didn't. But yeah, back to the suicidal ideation part. Yeah, I didn't realize how common it was just in general, but also like with people who struggle with CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And yeah, I realized that was actually a pretty common thing. And it made me feel less alone because the fact that I struggled with that and so much made me kind of feel like I was just like a lost cause. And learning that that wasn't true and that it was actually just like a pretty common symptom of a disorder made me feel like, again, less guilty. But yeah, back to the like actual part. I think when, yeah, like I said, I feel like we don't talk about that stuff because we automatically like assign it to be like extremely negative, and obviously like dealing with suicidal thoughts or suicidal ideation isn't a positive thing, but it can be like, it is indicative of something else going on, some kind of other issue. And for me, like this part of myself, like I said, I described it as like very timid and shy. Like it's not some evil demon like trying to get me to off myself. Like that's not how it works. It's just like, again, a part of myself that is trying to find like the quickest form of relief possible. Like that's what they're trying to do. And to them, death is the answer because they're like, oh, like you're done, you don't have to deal with it anymore. But obviously that's not the way that you deal with things. So yeah, but anyways, why I brought this up, something that I started doing was I used to just kind of like shut that down right away. Like I used to try to distract myself or think about something else, and that like kind of worked but mostly didn't, because you just have like this conflict. of like one part of yourself is feeling something really strongly and you're trying to just push it away, and that doesn't work. Instead, I think we really have to like stand in things and kind of face them to really resolve like those deep-seated issues. And so instead I started like talking to that part of myself and being kind and just being like, hey, I can see why you would think this was the answer. Like, thank you for trying to like help solve this issue, you know, even if it's a form that I don't agree with. And just kind of like checking in and like being kind to this person. And weirdly, that has made the suicidal ideation like significantly less frequent. And now instead of seeing them as like a person creeping behind a wall, I see them as like sitting down like up against that wall. So they're like in the space now, they're not hiding, and they don't say anything, but they're there. So yeah, and I know that sounds really weird and abstract, but that's just like, again, and like I know, like I said before, I know that like my brain, I'm just me, but like I said, I think our brain tends to compartmentalize things in ways that are easier to deal with, and so it has done that in my head in the form of like a little fog person, another fog person, because I don't think they're the same fog person, they're different. So yeah, that's just something that I've noticed. And if there's anything else, what else was I gonna say? As for the actual EMDR itself, again, we haven't gotten to the reprocessing yet, but what was I gonna say? Oh, we did do like a state shifting exercise, and I don't know if that was last time. I don't think it was. I think it was the time before that. But anyways, basically what that is my therapist asked me to, what was I gonna say? Blanking. I think I'm just tired. I feel like my voice sounds really monotone tonight, and I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so basically what state shifting was, we used the bilateral stimulation, and one of the first things you do in EMDR is like creating a safe place, and your brain just kind of like does that on its own. And so I had created a couple like I have one like safe place, and then I have a couple different imageries that like create those same feelings, but they're not actual places. Like one of them, for example, is this white seashell against a white background, and I don't know why or what that means, but that's just like the imagery that my brain came up with. And when I actually visualize it in my head, like this wave of peace washes over me. So I don't know why it works, but it does, and I guess that's the important part. But yeah, so we did that, and then she asked me to, we were doing the bilateral stimulation. It's stimulation, not simulation. I'm very tired, guys. And my brain was just kind of like exploring those like positive, peaceful places. And then she asked me to sit in a really negative feeling and connect to that. And it was actually feeling a specific fear that we discussed earlier in the session, and it was the fear of my dad dying, even though he's like very healthy. And so I sat in that for like, I don't know how long it was, maybe like 10 seconds, maybe. It definitely wasn't longer than 10 seconds. And I could like really feel those negative emotions. And it's funny because it's a lot easier to get in touch with like the negative feelings and even like the physical side effects of that, as opposed to like the positive ones. And so I sat in that, and then we switched back to the positive stuff. And I could just like feel it melt away. It was very weird. It was very interesting. And then at the end of the session, she asked me to like rate what that experience, she asked me to rate on a scale of 1 to 10, like how bad the anxiety regarding the idea of my dad dying was. And we didn't do that at the beginning of the exercise because we forgot. But regardless, it was significantly lower than it was than when we did the exercise, or before we started. So yeah, that was just like interesting to see how it works. And also another weird thing that I've noticed, which I think is connected to like, I know is connected to like processing trauma is I've had like a significant uptick in like body aches, which is weird. And I remember the night that we did the state shifting exercise, I actually like woke up in the middle of the night and my body was like aching. Like it felt like I had just like worked out or something, and I hadn't, because I don't do that enough. And yeah, I've been like reading up online. Apparently that's like an actual thing that happens. Like people report body aches, which I think is like fascinating. So yeah, that's like everything kind of regarding EMDR. Personally, some cool stuff personally. What was I gonna say? I have like, it's kind of too soon to say, definitely. But I may have my first like real photojournalist gig. I don't know if it's gonna be paid necessarily. Like I'm definitely gonna be getting like some form of payment, whether it's like exposure or something. And I'm not getting ripped off. It's like for a nonprofit. It's like work that I want to do. So it's not that. But yeah, I'm really excited. I may have my first gig and I'm really excited. And also too, because like the work that I'll be doing is something that like is very important and it's important to me. So being able to like do what you love for something that is like giving back to the community is really cool. So hopefully I can share more about that soon. And actually, wait, I do have a Paper Birds update, sort of. The lady who I've been communicating with from NAMI actually reached out to me again, because we've been talking, and then July I forgot to respond because life got really weird, and then yeah, didn't follow up, which is bad. It's not funny. But then she had messaged me like last week and I replied, so now I'm waiting for a reply back. But yeah, if there's anything new with Paper Birds, I'll let you guys know soon. I'm thinking about getting back into like editing the film, because I know that I have to finish that, but I'm also like not gonna rush myself, because I've learned that it's really bad when I do that. So yeah, that's actually why I had this folder downstairs, is because I got out, I think I showed in one of the earlier vlogs that I had like 6 folders, because I'm weird. I had like an interview transcript folder, like a research article folder, one for the drawings and stuff, and then 3 others for other stuff. But yeah, I had them all out downstairs because I was gonna start, along with my hard drive, because I was gonna start editing again, but then I didn't get around to it. But yeah, maybe one of these days I'll finish it, hopefully. It's a lot sometimes to like step back into that stuff, because it's just very painful, I guess. Just like editing itself, and I think I said this before, can just be like really triggering. And yeah, and I think one day I'll write something about like more in depth about like why that is. Not that I necessarily need to, but I think it could be interesting to put on paper. Sorry, there's an ant that's crawling on my windowsill. Just because, yeah, to like live through something traumatic and then create something about it is cathartic, but it's also, again, like very triggering. So I think it could be interesting to like write something about that relationship, because I think a lot of people do that. Like a lot of artists make art out of painful stuff and out of trauma, and it's interesting that like there is a certain amount of gray area there in terms of like how it affects you and if it's being more harmful or helpful. So yeah, but yeah, sorry, I feel like this vlog was like really boring and I sound very downtrodden, but I'm not. I'm just tired. I've actually been doing really well. We had book club today, which was very fun. So but yeah, I have therapy tomorrow, and I'll keep you guys posted, and follow the Paper Birds account if you haven't already. I'll put that in the description too. But good night. Hopefully I can sleep. Bye.